Hey, and welcome to Cooking with Rick. Today we're going to be making an apple cider braised pork loin. What you'll need for this dish is a pork loin. In this case we have a 2.5 pound boneless pork loin. You'll need 1 to 2 large onions chopped into 1/2-inch pieces, extra virgin olive oil, and a ceramic Dutch oven with a tight fitting lid. You're also going to need apple cider. I prefer the kind with the grit in the bottom, but this was an insane deal, so this is what we're going to do today. Okay, step 1, we're going to go ahead and preheat the oven to 350, and we're going to get some olive oil in our Dutch oven over medium-high heat. Add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil to the Dutch oven. And we're going to go ahead and score the fat side of the meat. Here we got the meat side, fat side. We're going to make some cuts into the meat vertically and go back and cut the meat horizontally until the fat side is nice and scored, so when you get it in the Dutch oven with the olive oil, it'll go ahead and begin the process of breaking down the fat. Okay, now your fat side is all scored up, and we're going to wait for this olive oil to come up to temp in the Dutch oven so we can sear this meat. Okay, now we're going to take our boneless pork loin and we're going to sear it off. So you're going to put it down in the hot olive oil and sear every side of the meat. We're going to start with the fat side. Okay, now when you're rolling your meat, you want to make sure that you keep it moving pretty often, once every minute or so, just so it doesn't get too browned on one side. Now be careful, there will be a lot of splatter coming up from the hot olive oil. So here we go, we got the fat side nice and caramelized. We're going to continue to move this meat around until all sides are browned like that. Okay, so now we've got our meat browned on all 4 sides, and we're going to go ahead and now add the onions into the mix. Just go ahead and pour them all around the meat. And we're basically going to let these absorb the olive oil as they sweat down. Tossing the onions around, kind of browning them up a little bit, caramelizing these onions. Alright, now we're ready to add the braising liquid. In this case we're using apple cider, and you can use vinegar, which is optional. We're going to use a little bit of apple cider vinegar and a little bit of red wine vinegar, and these are unmeasured portions. Okay, so let's add the apple cider first. We're going to add it until it comes up about halfway up the meat. Okay, so now we've got the meat halfway covered with the braising liquid, we're going to add a couple of dashes of red wine vinegar and apple cider vinegar. Just unmeasured. This is just to balance out the sweetness of the onions and the apple cider. Now that you have your onions and your braising liquid and your pork all put together in the Dutch oven, we're going to let this come up to a slight boil before we put it in the oven. Okay, now the onions and the braising liquid are starting to come up to a slight boil. So we're going to capitalize on this heat and trap it into the Dutch oven, just like that. Okay, like that. Okay, so the oven is now up to temperature, so we're going to take our Dutch oven and just put it right into the middle rack of the oven. At this point, you got about 3 hours, depending on the size of your pork loin. In this case, it was a 2.5 pound roast, so we're going to let it go for about 3 hours. We're going to check it again in 3 hours with a fork, and that's going to be your final test. Okay, you also want to make sure that you turn your meat every 45 minutes or so. Always start with the fat side down to let that render, and just turn that once or twice during the cooking process to keep the whole roast moist. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours. We got that roast out, and we're going to do the fork test. So what you're going to do is stick your fork into the meat and see if you can turn it. So there we go, fork in the meat, boom. Wow, now that's some tender meat. And that's all you got to really do. At this point now, we can just shred the meat. Pull in close, I want to show you this. So easy to shred. Just grab it with your tongs and just pull it with your fork. And there you go. You got big, juicy chunks of pork just soaking up all that sweet apple cider with those lovely caramelized onions in there. So that's all you're gonna do. Shred it up. Serve it on a bun, serve it just on the plate. Either way, you're gonna love it, I guarantee it. And that's been this episode of Cooking with Rick.